Hello, I'm Halcyon. I've recently released a guide about my favorite playstyle in Bannerlord, the Rogue Trader. Throughout the first few years of this hero's journey, he will profit from trading goods between the major cities, accepting odd jobs from strange people, joining various factions as a mercenary, raiding his competition and eventually fighting the nobility, all while his skills and bank account rise to great heights. But those are mere steps on the path towards the Rogue Trader's ultimate goal, complete conquest of the continent of Calradia. Before that goal is achieved, however, our protagonist will attempt to reach a most crucial milestone, the perk that allows him to convince the lords of the realm that everything has a price, even their towns and castles. This perk is a pathway to many abilities, some considered to be unnatural. The best way to get this done is by relying on an unorthodox method I call siege trading. Unfortunately, explaining this entire subject takes way too much time and I can't cover everything in a single video, unless you want to wait another 5 months. So today I'll only give you a list of requirements you must meet before you engage in siege trading. Teach you how to prepare for it, but first, let's revisit some ancient history. A long time ago, when I began my journey as a merchant, I realized that conventional trading isn't the fastest way to develop your business acumen, so I've started looking into alternative methods, setting up caravans, investing in workshops, stealing from the competition, and many other things. Those were all profitable ventures, but none of them would prove my worth as Calradia's top trader. No, in order to convince the nobility to part with their dear fiefs, I had to build a fearsome reputation as the most ruthless merchant on the continent, and prove to them that cities can become financial liabilities if not properly managed. Burdens that I would graciously offer to take upon myself while at the same time compensating them with a nice pile of coins. And if I want to sell a town, I can obviously make up a story about its great potential as a possible investment. And that's how I came up with siege trading, a commercial tactic that takes advantage of the fact that when a city is besieged, its economy plummets, people go hungry and prices increase to astronomical levels. A situation that can be exploited for great profit and even greater development in our career as salesmen. The first type of siege trading was something I discovered entirely on accident. As I traveled from town to town, I found a lot of cheap food, tools, and other daily necessities, but none of the cities I passed through needed any of my wares, and they were starting to slow me down. But I kept buying, got overburdened, and then I began losing hope that I'll ever find a market that'll actually purchase all this stuff. Until I noticed that a nearby town was being attacked, which gave me the great idea to go there with great haste and wait until the attackers win, lose, or they give up. When the siege was lifted, my caravan was the first to pass through the city gates, and the local merchants clamored around me, offering to pay up to 10 times the market price for some of the items I brought. That was my most profitable sale yet, but more precious than the money was the plan it birthed in my mind. What if I am the one who keeps the city under siege? If I control the narrative, the city will be cut off from the global economy until the prices rise to even greater heights, which leads to more profit and an even more fearsome reputation. And just to get us on the same page, the trade skill isn't a measure of how much you know about commerce, because there's not much to know about it. Buy low, sell high, whoop-de-doo. It's a measure of your renown as a merchant. But to return to the main subject, there's actually a few problems if you start besieging towns without any preparations. If you take your merchant caravan with 100 employees, declare war on the empire all by your lonesome, and then build a blockade around Ortesia, I don't even know how you'll lose everything you own. The garrison could sally out and crush you all, or maybe Garios himself will arrive with his cataphracts and trample you into the dust, or if he's preoccupied with other matters, a random army of 1,000 Imperials will surely come along to beat some sense into you. You could join a kingdom and do all that with the help of your fellow lords, but the blockade has to last for months, and you don't have that much influence to spare. Declaring war on the main factions isn't an option, so we'll have to attack cities that aren't affiliated with the big kingdoms. Rebels. In order to accomplish that, I've come up with an intricate method which I've named Siege Trading 2.0. To clarify, the 1.0 version is the one that requires you to wait for other armies to begin besieging towns. And as luck would have it, I've already published a video explaining every last detail of Siege Trading 2.0, from the preparation stage, to the destabilization phase, to the blockade, assault, and then the sale itself. If you want to learn and have the patience for it, you should definitely check it out. I won't repeat the stuff I've said back then, except maybe in passing to offer some quick context. But that method takes a lot of time and effort, so today I will teach you about the new and updated Siege Trading 3.0 method. It's not as complete, detailed and autistic as the 2.0 version, and the list of requirements for pulling it off is a lot smaller, so in a way, it's been improved and optimized, allowing for an even greater degree of versatility in your shady business dealings. Now that we've clarified some things, let's begin talking about Siege Trading 3.0. For my own sanity, I will assume you've already watched the guide for the 2.0 version, and I will also assume that you know everything there is to know about siege warfare. If you don't, no worries. I'll teach you all I know in a future tutorial, which is already written. In regards to siege warfare, you might assume that we start out with simple tactics and then evolve towards the more complete and complex assaults, but that is actually not the case. As rogue traders, we begin with the most complicated and drawn-out blockades, and as our political, financial, and military power increases, we simplify and quicken our methods. As such, your very first siege is going to be the most complex, so that's what we're going to discuss after I give you a list of requirements. First of all, in order to pull off a siege, you will need a party of at least 100 soldiers, so your clan has to reach Tier 2 minimum. Tier 3 is recommended, but if you've developed your stewardship, that skill will compensate. There are two paths towards achieving that kind of renown. The path of the great investor, whose caravans are spreading the word of his great deeds in the cities they pass through, or the path of the mercenary, where the lords you've defeated in battle will write your story with the blood of their fallen soldiers. Secondly, the goal of siege trading is to sell overpriced food to starving townsmen. Starving out a town takes a long time. Time in which your soldiers are going to eat the food you're trying to sell. Therefore, these two perks in stewardship are the bare minimum of what you need to unlock. Since we are rapscallion merchants, we should also make sure that our roguery is at least developed enough to unlock promises, which lowers the food consumption of your party by 50% if your 100 plus soldiers are all bandits. So yeah, that's two requirements in one. If you can obtain other perks that lower food consumption, such as Spartan or Logistician, that would be great, but those three are all we need. After you've developed your logistics skills and put together a warband of at least 100 bandits, you'll need to travel around the world, buying cheap trade goods from towns and villages. Food is the most important, but if you find yourself carrying tools, oil, or clay, it can't hurt. At least you'll know your men won't eat those. And make sure you've got enough mules to haul all that stuff, but if you get overburdened, don't worry about it. The town isn't going anywhere. Riding has some nice perks that help you carry more stuff and herd more animals, so get them if you can. Optionally, make sure you keep some battle gear from your raids. It could be used to pull off a nice and profitable trick, but we won't rely on that trick to conduct our business. Not so optionally, scour every tavern for talented companions. You want a surgeon and an engineer at least. They'll be crucial members of your operation if you haven't developed those skills yourself. I personally never develop my intellect. I prefer to be cunning, but if you want to be a smarty pants, I won't make fun of you. Pinky promise. It would also be great if you had some money in your bank account as well as a source of passive income. While you lay siege, your soldiers will require their daily wages, and if you run out of money, your men will run out of your party. The last and most important prerequisite: patience. As you roam the world, hoarding cheap goods on your mule's saddlebags, you might notice some town or another declaring its independence. If that happens, go there post-haste and prepare to lay siege to it. But in my experience, that almost never happens when it's convenient for you. If you have patience, you can just wait for rebellions to occur naturally, but if you can't wait, then you have the option to destabilize a town and increase the odds that it will declare itself independent. If you want me to describe every single detail of how to destabilize a town, go to the 20-minute mark of my manipulator guide. You see, Siege Trading 2.0 demands one to reach Clan Tier 4, establish a kingdom, send his companions to lead additional parties and assemble them all into a great heathen army. That is the ultimate form of military might, but with great power comes great responsibility, and if you're tied to a kingdom, even your own, you'll lose out on the freedom that comes with being a freelancer. It's in the name. Fortunately, the 3.0 destabilization method doesn't require you to go to such great lengths. Instead, you may bring a town to the brink of rebellion as a simple mercenary. Step number 1. Look for a city that is owned by a lord of a different culture. Sargot, for example, is a Vlandian city, but it's currently under the yoke of the Battanians, so the locals might have some issues with that. Name one Frenchman that enjoys being ruled over by the British. Then again, not even the British like to be ruled over by the British. Step 2. Pay attention to the loyalty of its population. If it's under 15, there's a high chance the locals will declare themselves rebels within a few days or weeks. But that doesn't always happen. Sometimes the loyalty drift might be enough to offset every single bothersome thing that could affect the locals. If the loyalty is above 50, the city can be destabilized, but it would take too long and you run the risk of being caught by enemy patrols. If it's under 30, then it's ripe for manipulation. Step 3. Walk inside and purchase all the food, especially if it's cheap. This step is optional, so if you lack the appropriate funds, don't worry about it. Step number 4. If the faction that owns this town is at war with another kingdom, join their enemies as a mercenary and then ride back to the city. Step 5. Put its bound villages to the torch, intercept all incoming peasants and take their belongings. If there's bandit hideouts around, leave them be. And if you have the cojones, build a siege camp around the city. I did say that blockading a town belonging to the major factions is a death sentence. But if you're a mercenary and you see enemies approaching, you may lift the siege, mail your resignation letter to your nearest faction representative, and claim to the local authorities that it's just a prank. Don't let yourself be caught though, you can't back out of your mercenary contract in the middle of a battle. Anyway, keeping the city under siege will cause its population to get a little bit rowdy, but instead of blaming you for their misfortune, they'll blame the damn British, as they should. They took over their town and demand taxation without representation, but won't even ride out to their defense in time of need. Not a good look. Anyway, keep this up for long enough and eventually the Frenchmen will dip their flag in blood, discontent with the British rule. Actually, they'll just reverse the color scheme of their owners' banners. That's their first act of rebellion. If you've managed to do this, great job! You've successfully destabilized your first town and caused it to go rebel. Now to take advantage of the situation. When the new city-state signs its declaration of independence, it is surprisingly going to let bygones be bygones and have no ill will towards you, despite having every reason to. No, luckily for you, the only ones they hate are their former rulers, who have now become your competition. Not enemies, competitors. So quit your mercenary contract, forfeit whatever wages you were expecting to receive from your employers, and get ready to engage in actual siege trading, which I'll describe in great detail in the next guide. I mean, you could watch the 2.0 version and learn even more, but I promise that Siege Trading 3.0 is a lot more optimized and brings some information I never got to share in my original tutorial, so stay tuned. Today's lesson, however, is concluded. Thank you lads for watching. If you've chosen to like the video, thank you even more. I hope you've learned a few things, and I promise to see you next time. Oh, and if you aren't already subscribed, I promised something special when the channel reaches 75k. Details in my announcement video linked below. And if you are one of my subscribers, thank you for the support throughout all these years. Speaking of which, Happy New Year, lads, and may God fulfill all the good wishes in your hearts. Anyway, it's time to say our farewells, so goodbye for now.